Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 117 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibby Gibson. Gibby, what's going on?
What's happening, man?
Well, you and I are taping early. We have got to get episodes in the can because we'll be at CrimeCon.
CrimeCon,
which means they have to be recorded, they have to be edited. Everything's got to be perfect.
Means I'm going to be busy the next couple of days.
Oh, you will be in the editing booth.
Yeah,
my brother.
I'll be tearing it up, man.
That's the scariest thing I've ever said on this podcast.
Me being in an editing booth?
That you're in the editing booth.
Yeah, that's not good for anything.
It's not. It's really, or anyone.
Or anyone.
For that matter.
Yeah.
All right, we've got some new Patreon shout outs. We had Celestina Ketia.
Ooh,
that's Celestina
cool Ketia.
Yeah, that was actually very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Jennifer Allen.
Hey, Jennifer.
Brittany Ramallo.
Ooh, Ramallo.
And I think she's been with us before. I remember that name.
Sounds familiar.
Beth Allen.
Hey, Beth.
Lyndall Asquith.
Asquith?
Mm-hmm. April Barber.
Hey, April.
That was good because you were afraid to try that one on the Patreon.
Yeah, I was a little nervous with
I think you nailed it, man.
Yeah.
Sindel Taylor.
Hey, Sindel.
Shauna.
Just Shauna.
Mariella Marinov.
Ooh, Mariana.
Emily Barford.
Hey, I'm just going to say Amelia.
Why are you going to say Amelia?
Why not?
Okay, go ahead. I don't think that's how you say her name, her first name.
About Amelie?
I don't know. I was thinking it was more like Emily, just spelled a little different, but I could be wrong. You could be right.
Amelie.
We had McKenna.
Hey, McKenna.
Eileen Heaney.
Hey, Eileen.
Jana Goodman.
What up, Jana?
Just Jeff.
Jeff.
Tamara Tipton.
Hey, Tamara.
Robert Blitz.
Hey, Robert.
Joanna.
Hey, Joanna.
Isis Ash.
Isis? Ash?
Yeah.
What's up?
Yep. Natasha Carter.
Hey, Natasha.
Taylor Whitford.
Hey, Taylor.
Cheyenne Gabrielle.
What's up, Cheyenne?
Randy.
Hey, Randy.
Just Randy.
Yeah, you are.
Justin Herzog.
Hey, Justin.
Erica Day.
Hey, Erica.
Tyler.
What up, Tyler?
And Debbie.
Good old Debbie.
So, good old Debbie. Debbie's old. Why
good old Debbie.
You said it like that?
Good old Debbie.
Yeah, I don't know why it cracks me up. You haven't said it in a while, I think.
Maybe that's why.
So if we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
All right.
This week we selected Janae Moxie Cruz.
Hey, Janae.
And Janae's been with us a long time. I actually remember, I couldn't tell you what episode it was, but I remember us giving her shout out because I remember you saying she has a lot of moxie.
I did.
And you would have to say that she has even more now.
Oh,
years later.
Given?
She's filled with moxie. Nothing but moxie.
I would think so.
But we appreciate Janae for the continued support. We appreciate everyone, the new supporters, the people that continue to support us month after month. We had some great PayPal support as well. Jane Dafter.
Hey, Jane.
Kate Massey.
What up, Kate?
Michelle Logue.
Hey, thanks, Michelle.
Allison Burks.
Allison.
Ania Howard.
Hey, Anita.
And Brett Ernsberger. So amazing awesome. Support. All right. So Gibbs, right now, you and I are probably flying back from CrimeCon, but we have an episode out on True Crime All the Time.
Yeah.
The second and final part of the Ed Gein saga. And this was, I enjoyed doing this episode. I'll be honest with you. I think enjoyed's a weird word when you're talking about anything to do with Ed Gein, but it's a story that I've wanted to do, since we started the podcast. Right. So strange, right? Every part of this Ed Gein thing is strange. I don't know how else to say it.
I was going to buy a new belt for CrimeCon, and I was looking at the different styles, and then I thought, I don't have no nipple belt.
Right.
Ed
so
Gein
you think you'd go
belt.
Ed would get you one.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that, right? So part 2, we really get into, okay, what did they find, right? When they get in to Ed Gein's house. I mean, that alone. A lot of people said they had trouble with the first one.
Yeah.
Well, the first one was like watching Barney compared to the second one, because, it really gets into the macabre type of stuff that, that he was doing, that they found.
Very macabre.
Very macabre. You like that word?
So, I forgot to mention it on the episode, but you think they like found stuff like they didn't even like. We can't even talk about this. Don't even put it in the report.
You think?
Yeah,
It's so over the top that no, I don't know. I mean, there was so much that was over the top. I doubt they left anything out.
The other thing is, do you think when like, hey, we're all going to grab lunch, somebody needs to stay here, and this one guy stays, and do you think
we'll bring you back something?
Yeah, but you think when they're all gone, he's like, I don't know. Let me try it on.
Oh, the skin suit?
Yeah.
No way.
Let me just try it on real fast. I just want to see what it's about.
No way. There's no way he even stayed in that house very long.
Yeah.
Because of the smell. The smell. That's the thing, man. People don't realize. How do you get over the smell? But again, we talk about all of that.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Are you ready for this episode of Unsolved?
I am.
This is a different one. And I think people are going to like the difference here. You know, we're talking about the St. Aubin Avenue massacre. We're going back in time a little bit, right? In Detroit for this one. This is about the Benny Evangelist family murders. But what I really liked about what you did with this one, Gibbs, during the research, it's very hard not to find some of the other really gruesome, unbelievable crimes that have happened over the years on this St. Aubin Avenue. So we're throwing them in.
Yeah. Sprinkled them in.
We'll talk about the murders that really people call the St. Aubin Avenue massacre, but then we're going to dive into a couple of other series of murders, or however you want to say it, murders that happened on St. Aubin years later.
Yeah.
That just jump right out at you when you're researching this case. But let's start off with Benny Evangelist, right? This guy was known as a lot of different things. An Italian mystic healer. He was called a cult leader. He was the author of a self-published book. But given all that, the guy was a carpenter by trade. That's what he did for a living.
There you go.
So, hang a couple doors. I'll make you some handmade cabinets. But I got this other stuff going on.
Let me tell you about this little side gig I got on.
He's got some side gigs.
Yeah.
So the book that he wrote, the title was The Oldest History of the World Discovered by Occult Science. So you can kind of tell what this guy was into, some strange things.
Yeah.
But then on the night of July 3rd, 1929, so we said we're going back quite a ways, Benny Evangelist, his wife, and their 4 children were found brutally murdered by an axe in their Detroit home. So they lived on St. Aubin Avenue, 3687 St. Aubin Avenue. This is one of the most gruesome unsolved murders in the Detroit area. And that's saying something. I lived in Detroit for a number of years. So to say that something is one of the most gruesome anything in Detroit, you're putting it in a very special category.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can tell you, man, watching the news every night when I lived there, there is a lot of stuff going on.
Didn't want to hang out downtown.
No, I did not go downtown a lot. Let's put it that way. Now, downtown Detroit, I think, is a little different than it was when I lived there.
Oh, big changes.
Yeah, they've got the casinos and, they've done some stuff. But
I think when Quick and Loan came in, man, they made a lot of good things happen.
Yeah, it was really rough in the 90s when I lived there.
Yeah.
We drove down a couple times to go to, I think we used to go to like Mexican Town, and they had some good restaurants and stuff. But you would pass just streets of just boarded up bars on the windows. I mean, it was a National Lampoon's Roll 'em Up situation for sure.
Yeah. I did a couple tours up there for the place I work, man. And
a couple tours,
man. It looked like a war zone down.
I was in this shit, man.
Hey, when you're down on 2 mile, 1 mile, man, you're like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think I lived on like around 13 mile.
Yeah.
But like I've said before, it's a wonder what 2-3 miles, what that difference is in Detroit.
Yeah.
It's a big difference when you get from, 7-8 mile to 13 mile.
That's what Eminem said.
So Benny Evangelist, born in Naples, Italy in 1885, he came to America in 1904 as an immigrant. His real name was Benjamino Evangelista.
Benjamino.
And that's the way you would have to say it.
I would have said it that way. Yes, I would have.
He probably got tired of people saying it that way. So he later changed his name to Benny Evangelist. Probably much easier for people in America to say.
Yeah, don't have some smart ass like me making
fun of him.
Yeah.
So he lived in Philadelphia when he came over prior to moving to Detroit. He moved to Detroit because he felt like there were better business opportunities. And, back then I'm sure there were.
Yeah.
Detroit was, probably starting to boom around that time. In 1906, Benny started saying that he was receiving visions from God. And it was this that led him to start his own cult, which he named the Union Federation of America. That seems like a very strange name for a cult. I got to be honest with you.
It doesn't seem like, as far as marketing wise, not the best choice.
No, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It sounds more like a
wrestling
that I was going to say like a trade, like a union.
Yeah.
Well, it's got the word union in it, but
yeah.
I think that's why. It was around this same time that Benny started writing his 4-volume book. This book took him quite a long time to finish. I mean, I think it was pretty big, but almost 20 years, I think, Gibbs, give or take. In the preface of his book, Benny is quoted as saying, "My story is from my own views and signs that I see from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. I began on February 7th, 1906 in Philadelphia, PA, and it was completed on February 2nd, 1926 in the city of Detroit, county of Wayne, state of Michigan. On the new earth, the last one was created by God, the Father Celestial, and the great prophet Meal. We call it today the Great Union Federation of America. I am with the power of God, and I respect this nation. In this book, I shall express all my views of the past 20 years. In this great continent, we are all the generations." Gibbs, I don't understand one bit of that.
I don't really either. And you think I would, if anybody.
Right. I think you should be able to translate it for me for sure. Part of it is that it just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. So one, his English was never that great, right? He never really got any training or education behind that coming from Italy.
Right. Okay.
So his translation to how he wanted to put it towards English was not that good.
That makes some sense.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I began and it completed. Like that part didn't make any sense to me. Then it really started to go off the rails. But that wasn't the English part later on. It was just that he was talking about some stuff that, I don't know.
You'd have to read his book to understand it.
I know. I'm going to have to maybe I can get that on Audible. Because I don't want to sit and read that whole thing.
You'd be lucky to find it at all, but maybe it's out there on some PDF form somewhere.
I can listen to it on Audible while I'm mowing the grass or something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Volume 4.
But Benny would declare himself a divine prophet, a mystical healer, and a spiritual leader. He used herbal medicines and at the same time used black magic.
Yeah, whatever worked for him, I guess.
Right. He built a desk/altar in the basement of his home.
Well, he was a carpenter, so, he had skills.
Well, and maybe he was trying to save space, so he was using it for two different things.
Yeah, it's kind of like the mullet, right? Party in the front, business in the back, or whatever. Exactly. And he did the same thing with his desk altar.
So on the desk altar, there were 12 small wax figurines that were said to portray various celestial planets. He also had this huge eye in the middle of each of the figurines, and it was said that somehow he would make the eye light up, right, from inside the figurine. He also had some paper mache dolls that were said to have been made in the likeness of his gods. He draped green fabric on the walls around the altar, the desk, and behind it, he had 2 swords and a huge cross. This guy has a lot of stuff going on around this desk altar.
It's a busy room,
It's a very busy. The feng shui is all messed up.
Yeah,
I can tell you that right now.
It has to be.
Next to the altar was a large portrait of his first son. And his first son had passed away, right, years ago. It's a strange picture. Yeah. It was described as showing his son dead inside his casket. That's a very strange portrait
to
have
display.
on the wall. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to have period. Most people don't take a picture
No.
of their loved one deceased in the casket, right? You have pictures of them in life. He used this altar for his sermons and his healings. It was also said that while he did this, he wore a wig and a fake beard.
Because that's what you do when you
are doing something in with black magic. You got to hide your true identity. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
But what I will say is that in the 1920s, as this mystical healer, he was charging about $10.
That's not bad, man.
No, for every healing. I mean, you heal 2 people a day. That's $20. That's a lot of money in the 1920s.
That's a good day. Going to make yourself kind of upper class real fast.
And you know, how long does it take to do a healing? 30 minutes? You got 23 hours left in that day.
That's right.
And you've made $20. You're good to go.
That's your type of day, right?
It is
there.
my kind of work day.
Yeah.
Actually. But, you know, because of this, he made a very substantial amount of money. And my sense is he probably worked more than an hour a day.
Yeah.
Made quite a bit of money.
Maybe just worked one day and called it quits.
Maybe he did. I don't know. So he's doing what a lot of us would consider some strange things, but he's making a lot of money. The other thing he's doing around the same time is making enemies, because when you're doing things that other people consider strange, mystical, black magic type stuff, there are going to be people that don't like that.
And you're also making some claims that you better follow through on.
That you can heal people.
Yeah.
And you're taking a bunch of people's money, quite a bit of money to heal. So if I'm not whistling zippity doo-dah at the end of my $10 session, I could be upset.
Because as you said, $10 was a lot of money. So
That's
people are working
really
hard for that money. They're not going to part with it lightly.
I don't know. What do you think it is? Do the conversion. You're the conversion master.
Well, it'd be like dropping $100 today, right? Easy.
Oh gosh, I think it'd be a lot more.
Yeah, probably could be. Laying down $500.
I think it easily could be $500. We're talking about the 1920s.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I think $10 was a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah, that's big time.
I mean, I really think it could be like a week's wage.
Yeah.
I really do.
Could you imagine dropping a week's wage on something and they didn't do what they said it would happen?
Yeah. I mean, if you had a serious disease and this was set to cure you, you drop a week's wage.
Yeah, or more.
But if it doesn't work, you're going to be ticked. Absolutely. And you're going to be upset with Benny Evangelist.
Yeah, I'm on the streets now, but look at him. He's eating at that fine restaurant.
Because the one thing we know, right, when people spend their hard-earned money, they worked hard for that, especially in 1920. Whatever job you had to make that money, it was not sitting behind a desk and making conference calls.
No.
It was probably, hard labor, hard work.
Yeah.
When people spent that type of money, and it's the same today, they expect to get what they were promised, what they paid for. People used to sell a lot of potions.
Yeah.
Elixirs. I don't think they called them potions. They called them elixirs or whatever, Mr. Feelgood's magic healing elixir or whatever it was. They'd make all these claims.
Right.
That didn't do nothing.
No.
Obviously, you were ticked. You weren't going to buy it anymore. But when you bought it, you expected it to work.
The placebo.
Placebo?
But the placebo.
Why would you try to say that? Why in the world would you try to say that word? That's funny. And I'm leaving that in too. I'm not cutting that out.
Yeah, you're crushing me with this
one. No, I don't think it's placebo. I think you spend your money, you expect it to actually work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just make you think.
But he's trying to, if as a healer, if it doesn't really do what he claims it does,
you're hoping that there is a placebo.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're going to talk it up in their head to make them think it's happening.
So he's making a bunch of money from this. He was also, he made money from his day job, his carpenter work. On the night before Benny and his family were murdered, Benny called the night watchman of a nearby house that was being demolished. Now, Benny told the night watchman that he had purchased all the salvageable wood from the demolition company for this new farm that he had bought. So he said that the demo company is supposed to deliver this wood to the farm the next day. He told the night watchman that he would pay the delivery company cash. right, for this delivery. But this delivery is never going to make it to the farm because Benny's never going to make it to the demolition company to make the payment.
No, he's not.
On the night of July 3rd, 1929, this was close to midnight, Benny's wife, 36-year-old Santina, their 4 children, 8-year-old Angeline, 5-year-old Matilda, 3-year-old Jay, and their 18-month-old son, Mario, were all brutally slaughtered while they laid sleeping in their bed. All, Gibbs, killed with an axe. That's brutal, extremely brutal. Each member of this family, right, that we've talked about, their skulls were crushed by the axe. Benny's wife, Santina, her head was almost severed.
That's violent.
Oh, the whole thing.
The
whole thing is extremely violent, extremely brutal. The oldest girl, Angeline, she was 8 years old. Her arm was almost severed completely in what they believe was her trying to raise it to defend herself.
Yeah.
And this axe is coming down and essentially almost severed it in half.
Going right through her.
Then you get to Benny, right? Benny was 43 years old, 7 years older than his wife. He was killed in his basement, study, at his desk/altar that we've been talking about while he was sitting in his chair. And he was killed by the very same axe that killed the rest of his family.
Yeah.
But in this case, his head was severed. It was completely chopped off.
Yeah, lay on the floor next to him.
Somebody was not happy with Benny.
This is rage.
This is not, I'm trying to get a job done.
Right.
This is, I'm ticked.
Yep.
And I'm taking out my frustrations on not only you, your entire family is the way that I'm reading it. Benny's hands were folded together as if he was praying. And then his body was slumped over, on his hands, but his head was lying on the floor next to his chair. That would have been a gruesome sight.
Oh, walking in on that? Oh my gosh.
Well, and speaking of that, the family was discovered around noon next day by a real estate dealer, a guy named Vincent Elias. And this is the guy that Benny had bought the farm from. This guy stopped to receive a payment, on the farm when he found the whole family dead.
Couldn't even imagine walking in on that.
No, and we said it up front, right? This is going to end up being one of the most gruesome unsolved murders in the Detroit area. All right, Gibbs, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsors. Hey, folks, Turo is the largest car-sharing marketplace in the world. It's available across the U.S., Canada, the UK, and Germany with over 10 million users worldwide. Turo has the widest selection of cars available, so you can choose the right car for whatever occasion, often at a lower cost than rental car companies. So you can get a pickup truck for moving day. You can get a sweet, snazzy convertible for a weekend getaway. Find the perfect car for your next adventure on Turo. And listen, if you're looking to buy a new car, book it on Turo. Drive it around for a day or two. You're going to know what it's actually like to live with it before you buy. So hop on the Turo app or website, find and book the car you want, then meet the host and they'll hand over the keys. Turo has multiple protection plans for each trip, which include up to $1 million in liability insurance through Liberty Mutual. So download the Turo app. That's Turo on the App Store or Google Play, or visit Turo.com. Get $25 off your first trip when you sign up with the promo code TCAT at checkout. Terms apply. And next up, it's Best Fiends. America has fallen in love with this game. Best Fiends, the 5-star rated mobile puzzle game. Discover the world of Best Fiends, its cute characters. This game is so fun, and it's free to download, right? It's a free to download mobile puzzle game. It's a totally different puzzle experience. Yeah, with Best Fiends, you're going to solve thousands of fun puzzles, but there are tons of cute characters to collect. There's a really epic storyline in this game, and that's what's going to keep you engaged the whole time. Thousands of hours of gameplay. And this is a game that's very easy to learn, but difficult to master. Some of these levels, they're challenging. They require you to use your brain. You can play Best Fiends offline anywhere. It's perfect when you want to squeeze in another level on the go or play it on the plane or in the subway. I am addicted to Best Fiends. There's just something about the game, the colors, the visual style of it. So solve thousands of fun puzzles, collect tons of cute characters, download Best Fiends free on the App Store or Google Play. That's Best Fiends, like Friends, but without the R. Best Fiends. Detroit is in Wayne County.
Yeah.
So Wayne County coroner, this guy at the time, his name was James Burgess. He made a comment in the paper the following day. He said, quote, "This is the most unusual case. A single perverted maniac must have killed them, although it seems impossible that some of their screams would not be heard."
And you would think that's right. Somebody had to hear. You just think with 4 kids, there'd be a lot of screaming going on when they're hearing what's happening with mom, when they're seeing, the oldest daughter, trying to defend herself, she's screaming.
Well, and the mom would be screaming if everybody would be screaming.
Yeah.
If a person came in with an axe and started swinging it and hitting people. So, but I want to break down more of this guy's statement because he's assuming that this was a single person.
Right.
I think you would make that assumption based on the fact that they were all killed with an axe, the same axe. You don't have 2 different axes, right? This is each of these family members was killed with the same axe. So makes sense. It would be one person.
I mean, that's their assumption. They don't have a murder weapon. So
no, but it strikes me as somewhat logical. You guys thinking probably, God, this is so horrific. How could you get somebody else to do this with you? Right.
Right.
Has to be a single person.
So for me, the question is, who was murdered first? Did they go downstairs and get Benny and then work their way back upstairs to the family? How did this all happen? If it was one person, I can see if it was 2 people, because then one would go down, one would go up. But if it's just one person and you're trying to not alert the other members, you'd have to work fairly fast for one. And 2, you would hope that you would surprise Benny so that he didn't have time to give any warning to his family. Because, he was a carpenter, so you had to figure he had to be somewhat able to handle himself, wouldn't you think? A carpenter working with, they didn't have the power tools we have today. So, he had to have some type of strength.
No, I think you're absolutely right. My assumption is that if you had your choice, right, as a single killer, you would focus on the dad first.
Sure.
The dad is the most dangerous person in that family. And then you would next target the mother. That would be the next most dangerous, and so on and so on. But very tough to kill 6 people in a house quickly enough with an axe that they're not somewhat alerted and get up and start running. And
right.
It's like the coroner said, it's a very unusual case. On July 6th, the funeral for Benny and his family took place, and it said there was over 3,000 people.
That's quite a bit.
It's a large number that attended. They packed the streets to get a look at the victims' caskets. But again, Gibbs, this is not 3,000 people that knew Benny and his family.
No.
This is 3,000 people. Well, I don't know how many people out of the 3,000, but the large majority, I would say, are people that were just so curious as to, what happened, that these 6 family members were murdered, that they had to come down and take a look.
Put their eyes on that and see what it was all about.
Yeah. And I think just like they do today, Gibbs, the police staked out the funeral services. They were looking for anyone that they thought was suspicious. They saw a few people that they were suspicious of, but one man in particular stood out, so much so that they took him in for questioning.
Right.
The man, according to police, he was acting, somewhat strange, peculiar, but also it was said he was excited, which is a strange description for a person at a funeral.
It's going to catch police attention.
Yeah. So they interrogated him for several hours and they determined that he was not involved and released him. So we talked about this delivery, right? This salvaged wood that was supposed to go to the farm and never came. Well, that's because Benny never went to the demo company to make the payment because he was already dead. Yeah. When the police searched the home, they didn't find a large amount of money that Benny would have used for this big lumber delivery that he was supposed to get the next day, that he was supposed to pay for, right, the next morning. So that is a big question. What happened to this money that almost certainly he would have had to have had in his house if he was set to make the payment the next morning?
So because of this, the police begin to see money as the prime motive.
And I think that makes all the sense in the world, right? We know money is a huge motive for murder. But when the police start to investigate, right, obviously they're looking into this whole notion that there's a huge lumber delivery set. He was supposed to go make this payment. When they look into it, they find out that there's no record of this delivery that is supposed to have been made that next day. So police have no list of suspects. But I think Gibbs, even bigger than that, the company that supposedly sold the wood to Benny said they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But yet Benny, even some of his friends, they all seem to believe that it was a deal, a real deal.
Yeah, this wood was going to be delivered out to his new farm so that he could build something out there.
So the police have no list of suspects. They have a company that says they didn't sell the wood to Benny. They have a phantom delivery crew that apparently doesn't exist. What the police did have, Gibbs, is a large number of people, a broad range of people, you know, from this company that supposedly sold the wood to Benny, but they said they didn't, to, you know, distressed cult followers, unhappy clients of his, you know, what we talked about, his mystical healing programs that didn't work sometimes, to maybe just some random person that had an axe to grind.
Yeah, literally.
No, yeah, you're right. Speaking of that axe, they never found the axe. I think you said that, right? Murder weapon was never found. They found just a few bloody fingerprints on a door latch. And I think that's somewhat interesting because we didn't talk about it. But now that I'm thinking about it, you murder 6 people with an axe.
It's going to be bloody.
It's going to be one of the bloodiest scenes you can imagine, especially the fact that you severed Benny's head.
Right.
You almost severed someone else's. You almost severed an arm. These are huge, arteries that are pumping blood like crazy. Just a massive amount of blood.
You're not walking out of there clean.
No. So they found a few bloody fingerprints. The police at the time offered $1,000 for information leading to an arrest, which, as we talked about, is a huge amount of money.
That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, in 1929. I mean, what would that be today?
Well, it seems like that'd be like $50,000 today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
But
what did I say? $10 was maybe 500 or 1,000. I think it's 50,000, 100,000. I think it's a lot of money.
It was so much it made me look at other articles just to confirm, was this dollar amount really true?
Other cases back in the 20s?
Yeah, because it was just really hard to swallow that much money would be offered up. Because we've seen in cases 15 years ago,
$10,000.
$10,000. And we're like, really? So back then they offered 1,000 in 1920, but they did. They must really wanted to make sure they got this solved.
Well, I think they're looking at the brutality.
Sure.
The number of victims, the age, right, of 4 of the victims, very young. I think they factored all of that in. And probably the fact that it was making them look bad.
Yeah.
As a police department, as a city, that they would have this, horrific unsolved murder. They wanted to solve it.
And, this is up and coming Detroit.
Sure. Now, the one thing I think, Gibbs, that you do have to worry about. When you offer that much money as a reward, you're going to get a massive amount of tips, a massive amount of information. Some of that is going to be blatantly false, right? You just have people coming out of the woodworks trying to collect $1,000. The police received a clue in a letter that was signed the murderer. So this letter was sent to police, and the clue inside the letter was that it was a hatchet that was used in the slayings. And not only that, but the letter said where police could find the hatchet, and it directed them to a house on the 5400 block of Lincoln Avenue. But of course, police are going to check that out. They searched all but 2 houses on that block, and they didn't find the hatchet, and they didn't find any trace of this writer, right? The signed this letter, the murderer. The police later came out and said the letter was a hoax. It was not written by the person that killed these 6 people. What I couldn't figure out, Gibbs, right? I don't know how many houses on the 5400 block of Lincoln Avenue. They searched all but 2.
Yeah. Why not those 2?
What if one of those 2, was the one that they were talking about in the letter?
Yeah.
But we couldn't find any information on it.
But it makes you wonder.
It makes me wonder. I'm curious as to why. My assumption is those people didn't want their house to be searched.
I guess.
Maybe.
It's kind of like that movie with Tom Hanks on the island.
Castaway?
Castaway.
Mm-hmm.
He opens all the boxes.
Where he's a castaway?
Where he's a castaway. That's true. He opens every box.
It's kind of the perfect title for that
you're
movie.
Right. Yeah. He opens every box except that one.
That has the little wings on it.
Yeah. And, that could be
the thing that saved him or got him off the island.
Could have one of those satellite phones in there.
Right.
But we don't know because he would never open it up.
I like that movie. I don't think I've ever talked about it, but I watch it all the time.
It's a good one to lay on the couch on a lazy day and just watch it and veg out.
But how many movies do you watch where, for the majority of the movie, there's very little talking at all?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he talks to Wilson. He talks to himself sometimes.
That's it.
But for the most part, it's Tom Hanks in like 60 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Just grunting.
Yeah. Talking to a volleyball.
Yeah.
And I still watch it.
I think Wilson got a supporting actor.
Did he? Did he get nominated? I don't think he won.
He should have.
So police, right? They want to solve this badly. They're on a citywide hunt. They want to bring justice to this family. The search was headed up by Detective Lieutenant William Johnson. Police developed a potential lead, and it had to do with the case of a mother and her 3 children who were murdered just a couple of weeks before this big murder took place. They thought the 2 were related, but in the end, they could not tie the 2 cases together. The police looked into another individual who was arrested on the day that the murders were discovered. This guy was found with a blood-covered knife. That's never a good thing.
No.
So police obviously, they had to take a look at this guy, but they could not link him to the murders. But what's interesting about this guy is that a neighbor did link him to the family.
Yeah.
The neighbor said that he had seen this guy over at Benny's house a number of times.
Maybe he was one of Benny's worshipers.
Maybe. I never got any information about who the guy actually was, but he denied that he knew Benny at all. The part that bugs me about this guy is, and number one, because this case is so old, it's kind of hard to get a lot of information.
Right.
There wasn't a single article that explained why this guy was found with this bloody knife.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm like trying to figure out why the guy, okay, so let's say he didn't kill these 6 people. They still found him with a bloody knife. You're going to have to answer for that.
Can we have the backstory on that, please?
No, we cannot. So we don't have it. We don't have it to tell everybody else.
Yeah.
The police developed another person of interest. This was a man named Aurelius Angelino.
Ooh, Italian.
That's a heck of a name.
Yes.
He was an escaped mental patient.
That's hard to do.
It's hard to do, but it also means that if there's a murder anywhere, you're going to be on somebody's list.
Yeah.
we are looking for an escaped mental patient, he is likely to commit a murder. I mean, the police are going to think that, right?
Sure.
He was born in the same town as Benny, came to America at about the same time. So they were actually friends.
Yeah.
Became friends while they were both living in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. Both of them were religious type guys. They were very interested in religion.
And they belonged to the same cult when they lived in Philly.
In 1919, Angelino was confined to a psychiatric asylum after he killed his 2 children. That's horrible on its own.
Absolutely it is.
But as it relates to this case, he killed them with an axe. So he was in this facility for about 4 years. He escaped in 1923, and this guy was never seen again.
Gone.
So you have an escaped mental patient that killed his 2 children with an axe. I would never sleep again.
Oh, like
maybe they didn't publish that type of stuff back in the 1920s or
probably didn't want people to know.
To me, where this connection gets very interesting is in the theory that Angelino killed all 6 members, right? Benny and his family. And the reason behind it was that Angelino didn't really kill his own children. It was Benny that killed his children, framed Angelino to have him put away, and Angelino escaped and took his revenge on Benny and his family.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating theory, made more fascinating by the fact that nobody's ever seen this guy.
No. And if you think about it, it's plausible.
I think it's plausible, sure.
You know?
If the guy hadn't escaped from the mental institution, I say, okay, it's not plausible because he's locked up. But the fact that 6 years earlier he escaped, nobody has ever seen him. They didn't catch him. They didn't put him back in.
No.
That means he's either in the U.S. lying low, or if it was me, he made his way back to Italy.
Sure.
Where nobody's really looking for him.
Or he hung out low enough to take revenge and then
he went to
back
Italy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a fascinating theory for sure. In March of 1930, a dog showed up at a woman's house and the dog had a tag on. And the tag said that the dog belonged to Benny. Benny was the owner of this dog. So again, this is fascinating because this is like a whole year later. Where's the dog been?
Where's it been? Who had the dog? The killer? Who knows?
Somebody feeding it? I mean, you're saying the dog lived on the street for a year? I mean, it's possible, but I think it's more likely that somebody was taking care of this dog.
Right.
And then eventually let, the dog go. What was really horrible about the whole thing as it relates to the dog was nobody would take the dog in.
No.
They were scared to death because there was this theory that the dog was somehow tied to the killer of the family. And they thought, okay, if I take the dog in, this killer's going to come after me. There's going to be repercussions. Nobody would take the dog.
I think it's crazy that nobody wanted the dog, but, they didn't want a dog.
Are you taking your chances against this escaped mental patient, Gibby?
No.
Don't tempt fate. But I feel bad because nobody would take care of the dog.
Right.
In 1932, a man by the name of Richard Harris, who was nicknamed the rear axle murderer, confessed to these crimes, these murders that we're talking about, right? The murder of Benny and his family. But as police looked into this guy's statements and his whereabouts the night of the murder, they found out that he was lying. There's no way that, according to them, he could have had anything to do with the murders. But I think where this one gets really interesting is that Richard Harris had his own occult following.
Yeah.
So we're into this whole occult thing.
He had over 100 members.
It was said that his membership was African American and the cult practiced a form of voodoo religion in the Detroit area. But Richard Harris was later charged with murder when he was caught sacrificing a member of his occult following as part of their whatever beliefs.
Yeah. Freeze, you're under arrest.
So obviously he was capable of killing.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been a number of leads, right, that pop up from time to time,
Sure.
especially in the early years. But eventually those leads dry up. And this case is super old. It's like 90 years old.
Yes.
And it's still unsolved. I think that's why, it's such a fascinating case. All of these kind of side people and strange theories that are just on the fringe of being believable / plausible.
Right. Definitely some bizarre stuff happened back in that time frame around this case.
No, there's no doubt about it. But to this day, right? No idea who murdered this family. It's also one of the oldest / most gruesome, most vicious cold cases in Detroit history.
Sure it is.
So the house where Benny and his family were killed was demolished in the mid-40s, just like the dog. Right? Nobody wanted this house.
No.
Now, I don't blame them on the house. I don't want to live where 6 members of a family were axe murdered.
No.
I wouldn't be able to close my eyes at night.
No
when
way,
my head
man.
hit the pillow.
Yeah.
I would be seeing all kinds of strange things. As a grown man, I don't want to live in a house where people were axe murdered. That's my thing.
Not if I can go ahead and buy something that is axe murder free.
Yes.
Down the road.
Yeah. If it's not going to cost me more, I'll take that one.
Yes.
But even after the home was demolished, people came forward and they said that the land was haunted.
Oh, they said they heard eerie noises.
Some people said they saw a headless man just wandering around on the lot,
Just looking.
seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
Strange noises. Like you said, it was described as ghostly voices. I don't know what that description is. That like a ooh,
I don't know, or like
It's not-
Casper,
Yeah, I don't know what a
or-
ghostly voice is,
Yeah.
but so that is the unsolved case of the St. Aubin Massacre. And it really is it's just a very fascinating case with all the kind of side shoots and different, theories and things that go with it.
Absolutely, for sure.
But like we said in the beginning, right, doing this research, impossible not to see some other cases that happened on the very same street, right? St. Aubin Avenue.
Yeah, because we're jumping up to 1990 on this next one.
Yeah, these we're going to talk about 2 cases, right? And they're much newer, right? 90s and then I think into the late 2000s. But these 2 as well, right? Very horrific, but they're both solved. But they go with this unsolved case, so we wanted to talk about them.
I would just say this is a street, maybe somebody's listening, lives on the street today, or this avenue.
Move. Put your house up
Yeah,
for sale.
move. I just know it'd be an avenue I would not probably find myself on.
Well, and I know it's over a 90-year period, but they've had at least 3 pretty horrific mass murders.
Yeah.
As far as I know, my street hasn't had any. Now, it's not 90 years old, but
I'm just saying
it's mass murder free as far as I know.
it's
Knock on wood.
Yeah. It's just a lot of activity.
It is. It is. On April 4th, 1990, like we said, on St. Aubin Avenue, a woman and 2 men burst into a 2-story bungalow and they forced their victims to lie on the floor and then they shot them in the head. The victims were found dead upstairs. It was 32-year-old Steve Owens, 21-year-old Carl Williams, 16-year-old Bobby Lee Frazier, and 15-year-old Robert Lee Hill. All these people were from Detroit. All had been shot in the head. 2 victims were found in the basement. 18-year-old Levon Robinson died shortly before they got him to Detroit Hospital. And 22-year-old Rodney Lewis died at the hospital the next night. Both were, again, shot in the head. This is a lot of people.
That's 6 people.
It's 6 people, just like the previous story. All died, all shot. Now, a neighbor said that this home where the slayings occurred was one of just a number, Gibbs, of crack houses in that area. So police began their investigation. And very quickly, they learned that Steve Owens' ex-girlfriend, this was an 18-year-old girl named Tamarra Marshall.
Yeah.
She was a high school dropout, but she was also like a kingpin.
Yeah. She already had a criminal history.
she had a rap sheet that included armed robbery, a whole bunch of other things. But at the time, this 18-year-old girl was running one of Detroit's biggest crack operations.
At 18, man.
She was like a drug kingpin.
No wonder she dropped out. I mean, the police even labeled her the angel of death.
Well, I think when you are the mastermind behind this type of mass murder, I don't think angel of death is unwarranted. But what happened was this girl, and I call her a girl, she's 18 years old. That's technically she's a woman, but
right.
She's 18 years old.
Well, it's like your daughter's age, man.
You're right. My daughter's 18 years old. This girl made the decision that she had this empire. She wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her. She was making all kinds of money. She was enjoying this drug lord kingpin lifestyle.
Money, cars, jewels.
Whatever she wanted, gold.
Yeah, the best clothes.
The one thing that was said about Tamarra was that she was vicious, extremely vicious.
Probably had to be.
Now, police would eventually figure out that she had 3 accomplices, 20-year-old Mark Bell, 19-year-old Jamal Biggs, and 19-year-old Mark Kaysen. So when it all came out, right, what happened was that, that night, the night of April 4th, these 4 individuals ambushed the house on St. Aubin Avenue. Tamarra Marshall shot her ex-boyfriend, who was running a crack house, right, at that address. Tamarra Marshall shot her ex-boyfriend, Steve Owen. Owens was running a crack business out of that house, and she didn't like it, right? They were cutting into her drug operation profits. After she shot her ex, Steve, she told the rest of her crew to kill his crew.
Yeah.
That was the other 5 people in the house.
Go take care of business, boys.
What came out was that she didn't want those other 5 people to have any chance at retaliation against her. I think on top of that, she wanted to make a statement.
Pretty bold statement.
To anyone trying to, sell crack or do anything that was, going to cut into what she was doing. But they caught her, right? She was arrested. She was eventually charged with first-degree murder, as were 2 of her accomplices. Tamarra was found guilty of first-degree murder for 5 of the 6 slayings. For 1, she got accessory after the fact. But in all, Gibbs, she got 3 life sentences with no parole.
Yeah.
And 2 90-year sentences with parole after 60 years. And then she got a 2-year sentence, which is very strange.
Yeah.
For the accessory after the fact. But
she's not going anywhere.
She's not getting out ever. Now, her one accomplice, Jamal Biggs, he had a previous conviction for armed robbery. He got almost 20 years. But of course, he was out on parole, right? He didn't do any, hardly any of that time. He was found guilty and received a life sentence. Mark Bell, her second accomplice, he had a pretty big rap sheet too. He was on a special probation program at the time. He was charged with having a concealed weapon when he was, under 18 years old. As an adult, he was charged with armed robbery. He had a conviction for assault. So pretty extensive.
Yeah.
He was found guilty and received a life sentence as well. So one thing that was very interesting, the day that Mark was sentenced, his younger brother was in the courtroom, right, to, I guess, support him when he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder on some other totally unrelated case.
Yeah, for some robbery that was less than $20.
Now, we mentioned Mark Kaysen. He was the third accomplice. He was the driver. He didn't kill anybody, but he was like the getaway driver. He brought them there. He waited for them outside. He didn't have any past, convictions, but he was charged and convicted with felony murder. Right. So that was the first solved murder.
Yeah.
Then in March of 2015, an eviction crew for the city of Detroit had to evict a family on St. Aubin Avenue. They entered the apartment. It was in the Martin Luther King complex. So they were all set, right, to do what they needed to do, start removing property to the curb, all the stuff you do during an eviction.
Exactly. Get the place emptied out.
Yeah. When they happened upon a small freezer chest, and it was heavy. So I think their idea was they were going to take the contents of the freezer chest out.
Lighten it up.
Yeah. Make it easier to move. They were shocked. Inside this freezer, there was one boy and one girl. And this eviction company called the police right away.
Oh.
They came, they took the mother into custody as a person of interest in this case. The mother's name was Mitchelle Blair, and she had 2 children living with her at the time, a 17-year-old and an 8-year-old. When the medical examiner took a look at these 2 bodies in the freezer, these 2 kids, they thought that they had been in the freezer for more than a year.
Wow, man, that's a
long time to live with bodies in your freezer. And it wasn't like she was really hiding these bodies. She had like a black bag over their faces. But anybody, the kids in the house, whoever was to get in this freezer would have known that there's 2 bodies in the freezer.
Yeah, you think you would have seen it fairly easy.
It's very, very strange.
My question is, was she putting food in there?
That they would later eat?
Yeah, it's weird.
On a Facebook page believed to belong to this woman, a post was made in January 2015 with the words, "There is no greater blessing than being called mom." On the page, it also said, "Loyal to my babies." Really? Because I'm not sure that you were.
I don't think so.
I shouldn't even say I'm not sure. You definitely were not.
I don't know what loyalty means to her.
So the Detroit Free Press, big paper in Detroit, they obtained some court documents that showed this woman had 4 children, aged 8, 11, 15, and 17. 4 children that she had with 2 different men. And eventually this woman would admit to police what she had done, saying she attacked 2 of her children, one in 2012, one in 2013. Now, she said that she didn't mean to kill them, but said that the 2 children had sexually abused one of her other children, and she was disciplining them both somehow at different times, and they both died. She didn't know that this discipline was going to result in their deaths. Sounds like a very solid story to me.
Yeah, especially the second time around. You think she would have learned from the first time, but she didn't. And she clearly didn't want anybody to know about it because she didn't call the police.
Oh, no doubt. But she also added to police that she didn't actually see the 2 children commit this alleged sexual abuse. And she didn't call police because she was worried that her other 2 children would be taken away. Well, they were definitely taken away.
Yeah.
And put into protective custody because she was charged with 2 counts each of felony murder, premeditated murder, and torture in the deaths of her 2 children, 9-year-old Stephen Barry and 13-year-old Stony Blair. Now, this is how old they were when they died. They weren't found for, in the case of Stephen, almost 3 years.
That's a long time to be in that freezer.
Before he was found, 2 years before she was found. So just a horrific story that happened again on St. Aubin Avenue. This woman is serving 2 life sentences and should be.
Oh, absolutely.
To kill your own children? Just unbelievable.
How'd she get away all those years? How people are, hey,
where's your daughter? Yeah. Where's your son?
Exactly.
And then that's kind of what I was getting at, where her other kids, it wasn't like they were 1, 2 years old. They were older. One of them was older. You're getting in that freezer for a popsicle. You're seeing something that you would think is jumping out at you. Something's not right here.
Yeah,
I need to alert somebody, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I haven't seen Steven around in a long time, Mom.
Yeah, what happened to my brother and sister?
Yeah.
So
all I can say is
St. Aubin.
St. Aubin. Probably not the avenue you want to be on.
Well, and you'd like to say in the 1920s, but now we've got a case in the 1990s. We've got a case that happened this decade. All 3 unbelievably horrific mass murders.
And we could easily have sprinkled in other things.
Yeah, there was other things.
These are like
the three worst.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it just kind of tells you.
But that's it. That's it for the case of the St. Aubin Massacre and two others sprinkled in. Gibbs, we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. This is Melissa calling from Iowa. A little Midwest action going on here. But I just wanted to say thank you because your podcast helped me solve a crossword clue. And that was the Blackfriars Massacre. Gotti was one of the answers. And so you guys talking about him helped me along in that puzzle. Anyways, love the podcast. I initially started listening because my boyfriend is a huge fan as well. Hey, Roy. But I wanted to suggest also we have some cases in Iowa that happened fairly recently. The Molly Tibbetts case and another one in Ames, Iowa. Celia, I'm going to butcher her last name, but she was a golfer at Iowa State University and she was murdered while golfing. It's a really tragic story. There's still ongoing cases. I don't know if you guys research or do anything with those, but once those cases get solved, I'd love to hear your take on them. Anyways, thanks so much and keep your own time ticking.
All right. Thanks for the voicemail. Roy got a shout out.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm actually familiar with both those cases.
Yeah, I saw your eyes light up on the one.
I mean, not super. It's not like I've researched them a ton, but I've kept up with them in the news. And I mean, technically they're unsolved. We could do them now. You know, the problem comes with sometimes recent cases, especially unsolved. They just don't have enough information.
Yeah. Well,
but these two are pretty well reported on. So there probably is.
I mean, sometimes the police, you know how they are. They hold back a lot of information for good
It doesn't
reasons.
come out until years later in some of the unsolved. Yeah, after so much time goes by.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, it's Angelica from Arizona, and I wanted to call you and tell you that I really appreciate your guys' podcast. It helps get me through the workday, and I recently listened to the Burger Chef, and I really liked it because it reminded me that my mom had told me that her dad had co-owned one of the Burger Chefs in the 1960s in Florida. I think it was maybe Jacksonville area. So it was really interesting to listen to the murder and to be able to connect it with something personal to me. Well, thanks again, and talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Listening to the Burger Chef murders and found a connection.
Probably loved that commercial.
That commercial was top notch.
It was. That was good stuff, man.
Hi, it's Max from Wisconsin. Love the podcast, guys. Just wanted to give you guys props for a great podcast. Also wanted to give a suggestion to Pete Zimmer, now known as Joe Van Collier from Mineral Point, Wisconsin, Dodgeville, Wisconsin. I remember growing up and my mom telling me the story about her little neighbor who was adopted child murdering his entire family and now is, only got a few years in juvenile detention and then changed his name and moved away. Pete Zimmer was his original name before the murders. He changed his name to Joe Van Collier from Mineral Point, Wisconsin, and it's a bizarre story that she knows about, and she would tell us that, and I think it would be a perfect fit for you guys, this podcast. So, love the podcast. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. I listen to you guys all the time. Thank you. Bye.
All right. We get a lot of suggestions, Gibbs.
We do.
Most of the time, I've at least heard of them. I never heard of this case in my life.
Never.
It sounds fascinating.
You should have your mom send us an email with what she knows.
Or we could just research it ourselves as we.
Well, I just like to always get firsthand.
No, I know
how that works.
I got you. I think it's one that we should research because it sounds like it could make for a great episode.
Absolutely.
If there's enough information out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name's Crystal. I live in Chico, California. I've been listening to your guys' show for a while now, and it really helped me get through a soul-sucking desk job that I really hated, and, helps me get through my day at a much better job. But working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, it definitely helps. I think I've listened to all of your episodes, and I often find myself thinking, oh, I hope they do one on this, and usually you guys have done it. But I think there's one case from Milpitas, California, where I'm from. There was a movie made about it in 1986 starring Dennis Hopper, Kristen Glover, and Keanu Reeves called The River's Edge, about the murder of 14-year-old, I believe it was Marcy Conrad. And she was murdered by 16-year-old Anthony Broussard. And though that itself may not seem too strange, he ended up stashing the body and showing it to a bunch of kids, and nobody spoke up about it for a while, but thought you might find it interesting, and the movie's just totally bizarre. You should just watch it anyway. But thank you for everything you do. Have a good night.
All right, another one to check out. I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
I don't think so. No.
I would remember that.
Nope.
I've seen most of Keanu's stuff. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Have to check it out now.
Yep. All right, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Hey, TCAT fans, don't forget about Turo. Turo is the largest car-sharing marketplace in the world where you can book any car you want from a community of trusted hosts. From exotic sports cars to pickup trucks, Turo has the widest selection of cars available anywhere for whatever occasion. Download the Turo app, that's Turo, on the App Store or Google Play, or visit Turo.com. Get $25 off your first trip when you sign up with the promo code TCAT at checkout. Terms apply.